Welcome, Georgie. So lovely to have you here. I feel like I have been such a active receiver of your work for so long, and it's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much, Hillary. I'm so excited to be here and to continue our chat. We've been chatting off
I
air.
know, I
So,
know, so good. And where I would love to start was just because I was there, like I was watching your journey when you were a lawyer. And I know it's probably so far away ago. You probably don't even speak about it that much. But I think it's really helpful for people to hear about your journey of corporate life and then coming into what you have now created. And yeah, I remember even just the tenacity you had then and still do. But now you're like channeling that energy into something that's truly aligned and beautiful and flourishing. So yeah, can you take us back to that Georgie who was working in law, but then was about to take the leap?
I love this, and I know you can resonate with this.
Hmm.
Yeah, so interesting. And I picked law, and I'm not sure why you picked law, but
Hmm.
I picked law because I know Joke watched Legally Blonde. And I always did have this fire. I'm a Leo. I always had this fire, and I wanted to do something, fun and a little bit crazy. But I also wanted to make money and I wanted to be respected in society. And that was, the conditioning pushed on me as a child. So I saw Legally Blonde and I was like, you know what? I could actually do law and I could make it a bit fun. I love arguing, you know.
I'm good at confrontation.
I'm great at
Yeah.
confrontation. And it honestly seemed fun to, be in this corporate sort of world, wear corporate outfits and, go to the courts and argue. And, that was my conception. And so I did my law degree, it took me 6 years because I did half of it part time and worked in a firm. And it was great. It's definitely still something I'm drawn to, like any sort of TV shows. I love law TV shows. I love that aspect. But it was very much done off the conditioning of, well, I have to do this in order to get the love, the respect, the money to create the life I wanted. And so when I was doing law, my side hustle was YouTube and social media. And it was so new. So I was kind of like doing this thing where there was no blueprint and I would just was like figuring out. And like, one day a brand was like, oh, like we'd love to send you these things and we'd love to pay you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we were like,
If I
I
must.
know. I told my, boyfriend,
Mm,
husband now,
mm,
and he's like, what? They want to pay you? Like, it's so crazy.
yeah.
And so I was doing partnerships on the side and, like I was working with Gymshark. I was going to Gymshark events. I was, working with these partners that were opening me up to more possibilities, expanding my mind, expanding my experiences. And so I finished my law degree. I got admitted. I worked in a really great, law firm doing family law specifically. And there just came a moment where I kind of looked at the other people that were ahead of me, what I should be aspiring to be. And I felt everything close in. Like I
Mm,
felt a physical retraction from that life. And because I had been privileged with the experiences of earning money a different way, an easier way, a more fun way. Because I had been, privy to the experiences of there's this whole world out here and people are doing all these different things. And, I had met the Gymshark owner and he was talking to me about like how he created Gymshark and that sort of thing. So I was exposed to a different way of doing things and the conditioning started to unravel, which so, blessed that it all happened that way. And so I just remember this moment where I was like, okay, I can see that path and I know what it looks like. And it looks a little bit hard and it looks a little bit soul sucking and it looks a little bit like the people aren't actually that happy. And then I can see this other path, but there's no clarity. It's full fog and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know myself and I know how tenacious I am. I know when I want something, I go after it. I do know, my values and I know who I am. So why don't I just kind of go into the fog and see what happens? Because worst case scenario, I just come back to this life, which I
mm,
can see and know.
mhm.
And I think that's even a very interesting thing because we are so conditioned to focus on the safe path, just do what everyone else is doing. Like you've got that direction, you've put all the time and energy into it. That's what you should do. And I think it's very important to talk about and give other people that permission slip of walking into fog, walking into uncertainty can literally be the greatest possible thing you ever do in your life. And I would argue we shouldn't know our future. I would argue we shouldn't know how good it should get. And so you should always pick the more uncertain, the more, oh, let's try and figure it out, because I also believe that our whole purpose is the becoming.
Yeah.
It's to figure out who you are. It's to figure out your skills. It's to challenge. It's to stride forward when things are uncertain. So if you're picking this path where it's so clear, you can literally see the next 50 years, you're cheating yourself and you're not able to fully step into yourself. And it's not like you do this work and these things to, like we always talk about being our authentic selves and, who are we becoming us? But if we don't have the uncertainty, if we don't have the fog, if we don't make the jump, you never find out who you are. And so even though like I probably couldn't articulate what I just said at the time, I had that inner knowing. And so I was like, let's just see what happens. And I took the year, I did a whole bunch of random things on, social media and with, partners and whatnot. And then it eventually led to starting my own businesses, which is Naked Harvest, my all-natural supplement company, which I co-founded with my brother, and Rise and Conquer, which is my self-development platform. And yeah, I don't know if I answered the question.
You absolutely did. And I felt like I was almost mirroring my story. I had the same exact moment of looking at my my managers and the partners and being like, wait, is that the actual life that I want?
Yeah.
And what I loved what you just said is that you could see very clearly that there was one option here, which is, very valid to take if you did want to take that option.
Yeah, it's a fine option.
It's a fine option. But then you saw this other option. And even though you didn't know how it was going to look, or you didn't know the specifics, you didn't have a plan, you could feel that sensation in your body that was saying there's something here. And then you saw people around you that was doing something similar, seeing the founder of Gymshark or other people that were starting to create this space. And I think it's amazing that you were one of the first people to be creating in that space, which I think is such a testament to you. And to then really just give yourself that option to explore. I think sometimes we just live so much from our logical mind and think that we see everything from our 5 senses when we're literally seeing 1% of what is possible. And there's like this 99% that your intuition can tap into, but it's not going to make the logical sense. And, I love what you said of the whole point of being here is the becoming. It's not about the business or the career or the family or the relationship. It's who you become in the process of creating that. And so, this idea that you can like skip all that and get to the end bit, it's defeating the whole purpose of life.
Yeah. And I truly believe it's, if you can see that future and you know exactly step by step,
it's not yours.
Yeah, it's not yours. That's not happiness. You're not actually going to get the feeling you want to get. You're not actually going to have the safety. It's not actually going to turn out that way.
Yeah. It's based on like your story's safety or your illusion safety, not your actual reality of what will feel most fulfilling or what will feel most true for you. So please share, have you always felt connected with your intuition and your gut? For those listening, Georgie's a manifesting generator, so that very strong gut instinct. So yeah, what's your ways that in business especially, would you say is strategic planning versus energetic, your gut, your alignment?
Yeah.
How does that play for you?
So it's interesting because growing up, I kind of grew up in a very traditional Aussie family. I actually grew up a Jehovah's Witness. So it was very no witchcraft, wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter, no dream catchers. And I was like, felt very constricted. And it's so interesting because even in high school, I remember being in high school and being like, what the fuck am I here for? I felt literally like my whole schooling period so confused. I was like, what are we all doing?
That's what I felt as well. And in the law firm.
Yeah, like really, I was like, it's like I was in a dream. And it's so interesting because now I can kind of understand why I felt that way, but so confused. And even just, I saw how my parents did life and I just was like, what the fuck is happening? And so I didn't really understand intuition. I didn't really understand myself, obviously, as a child and in my younger years. And then in my 20s, I also, were hanging around people, and it was we partied all the time. It was drugs and alcohol and, you know, basically just having as much fun as possible
Yeah.
and thinking as less as possible. And I kind of got stuck in that distraction until I was, at least 24, which was fun.
Exactly. I
No
love that
regrets.
parts
Love
of
that for us.
ourselves. Yeah.
But I feel like I didn't kind of start developing that intuition until I made that jump from corporate.
Mm.
And I had to, and I didn't kind of lock into that. And it's funny because I have a 3-year-old and I'm pregnant with our second daughter. And it's like locking into their intuition and really helping them discover this from a young age is something I'm going to be so passionate about, because even though I love my life and I wouldn't change one thing, I can really see time was wasted and how much distraction entered my life because there was just no concept of trusting your intuition. Sorry, I digress. And
No, I love that. I think that's so important.
especially women.
Exactly. And just like teaching your kids that of like, how does that feel in your body? Or does that feel like a yes in your body? Like
Yeah.
these simple things that, because we didn't grow up like that. Like our
No.
generation just didn't.
So
And
much
so
emotion
did-
suppressed.
Exactly. And like
It
our
came out in
parents.
weird, funky ways. And I'm like, gosh.
And so what I was even hearing from you, it makes so much sense. I believe that we choose our family in order to become the person that we're here. And like you coming in with this fiery energy, of course you get it suppressed.
Yes.
And so it gives you even more fire in your
Had
belly to be
to.
like, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
like, explosion coming out
Yeah.
of. And
it's funny because my mum is she's the best mum, very maternal, but she is a very typical good girl.
yeah.
And so growing up, we clashed a lot because I think she saw how fiery I was and how much I pushed against the boundaries and everything. And I was a direct mirror to everything maybe she wasn't. And so I remember feeling so much of, and she was a stay-at-home mum. And so much of who I've become is because of her, in the way of, I'm like, I'm never going to be a stay-at-home mum. I'm never going to be a good girl. Like, I was such a bad girl. Like, all those things, which I'm so grateful that she was my mirror. She reflected to me because it made me become myself. And then I've also seen her, become more herself, which is so incredible to see that double mirror, effect.
You're both each other's teachers. Like
Yes.
just showing each other what is possible.
Exactly. And sorry, going back to your intuition question about business. So I work with my brother who is a Leo, and he is very fiery and so intuitive led. He's probably more intuitive led than me,
Wow.
which is very interesting, for a man, if I'm being sexist. But we've always had this kind of vibe in the businesses because he came from a background where he was a plumber. My dad was a plumber. All my 3 brothers are plumbers. And so he was a plumber. And again, he got stuck in the distraction world. He got stuck in the same instance and would use these external things to, numb, to self-soothe, etc. And so we've always had this thing in business, in our journey of, if it doesn't feel good, we're not doing it.
Amazing.
And it's interesting because there has been different things that have come in business, specifically with sometimes external contractors. Sometimes someone will come in and promise the world and, we can take your business to this and we can do that. And this is the dream and this is the vision. And there has been distractions along the way where we almost have entertained things because there's this end promise of what it could be. And it reminds me of the whole, well, this is what the next 50 years could be. And it is easy to want to take that option. It is easy to want to
have that certainty.
Yeah, have that certainty, especially when, our business, it's an 8-figure business. We pay a lot of wages. We pay a lot of, to have some sort of certainty when you have a structure like that, you do get distracted. And I think what we've always done is we've had those little moments and then we've come back. And even recently we made a big decision in the business, which we were focusing a lot on retail. And it's because, we had this belief of, oh, well, we were an e-com social media business. And so we entered retail. And even I can see now the intention was like to legitimize the
Yeah,
business
it's
and
so interesting.
to be like, I remember the words, oh, I want, my grandma and my auntie to know the brand. And so, we got awesome retailers that reflected that. And don't get me wrong, it was such a great business move and we've done that. But there has been moments where I'm like, that's not even my vision. That's me trying to prove myself. That's me trying to legitimize for other people, not to myself, because of course the business is legit to me.
Mhm.
And so having moments like that, and we even made the decision recently where we're kind of going to pull away from certain retailers and certain things just because I'm like, again, I want to run off intuition. And when you get big corporate involved, when you get stuff like that involved, there's so much red tape. There's so much systems and processes, which again slows things down.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's interesting. We just had a moment and me and Cooper had a call and yeah, we're both like, fuck, we got a little bit distracted again.
Yeah.
And moving back into, well, what feels good? What feels good in our body? We also have this thing where it's like working with other people in the business. It's, would you want to do a podcast with them? Would you want to hang out with them on the weekend? Would you, do you vibe with them? Is that, the energy? And so we've had a lot of realigning using those principles, which again, don't make any logical sense, probably don't make any business sense. That's not the advice you're going to get from a bro marketer or,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
But for us, even though it's unclear, even though we don't know, I know if we follow our intuition, if we go off that basis, it can't fail.
It can't. And I think what you've beautifully shown is that it's so important the energy that's behind it or like the
Mm,
life force that's behind it. Because look, you can get into retailers. Like you're
yeah.
going to be able to get into them and you're going to be able to be successful with them. But how does it feel to be in that? How does it actually, as you
Yes.
said, it slowed things down. It felt really hard. It
Constricting.
felt constricted.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can keep doing it. And it's just like you beautifully had the self-awareness of being like, okay, what was the reason why we're doing this? And this is so sneaky because you can be in the business you love and be in the
Yes.
relationship you love or in the friendships that you love. And then you're seeing oh, why am I showing up in this way? And it's just such a beautiful reminders that we get because you're always going to get distracted. Like life
Mm.
is distracting. You'll have these little reminders and it just makes it even more sacred. So tell me about working with your brother. How I feel like I was actually thinking about this morning that I think in business or in anything in life, we really need to feel supported and either through someone that's really like-minded with you, but even as well, like for you with Rise and Conquer, even like the support of the universe or like feeling this like backing of an energy.
Mm.
And, even people that are like solo and doing their business solo, they like back themselves or,
Yeah.
and you both back yourself, obviously.
Yes.
But I just really think there is something to be said about having this feeling of whether it is a person, partner, or like the universal support and not feeling like you have to be alone
Yeah.
is really important. So yeah,
I
what's
l-
your experience with that?
no, I love that articulation. And yeah, I've had an experience in ceremony where I very much saw me and Cooper in past lives
Beautiful.
continuously. And so I do feel this huge, huge support from him that again, it goes back through, so many,
Lifetimes.
lots of lifetimes. I've seen us as twins. I've seen us, like very much in every sort of relationship. It's very interesting. And it's interesting because growing up, it wasn't really there because we were very suppressed. It was very distraction. And then when we both came into more of ourselves, it was like this instant magnetizing sense where he really understood me and he saw me and accepted me and vice versa. And so in business, it's really beautiful because, business is everything's a relationship, your relationship with money, your relationship with your business, everything. And so in business, it's very much we swap in and out of the masculine and feminine.
Mm,
Because I wouldn't even say we're set because I can be so masculine in business. And he, like I said, he's very intuitive.
intuitive.
He can be very feminine. So we very much play this beautiful dance in business of swapping in and out and always kind of complementing each other. And I think in business, if I always had to be in the masculine or if I always had to be in the feminine, it would not work for me personally. And I need that, like I said, that dance. And so we do that very well. And then I think the whole, we're family and we grew up together. There's that trust there and that beautiful,
Mm.
he understands why I am the way I am. And I understand the way he is. And, he can be quite sensitive. And so if he's having a sensitive moment, I don't take it personally. I can be quite direct. And so when I'm having a direct
Okay.
moment, look, he did used to take it a bit personally, but we've done work and you know what I mean? So I think it's so unique and it's so beautiful. And I feel so grateful to have that relationship with him, especially in business.
Mm.
And it just works. It's so funny. I always get this question because people are like, oh, I couldn't even imagine working with my family or, whatever it is, but it just really works for us. But again, I think it's that invisible energy. It's that invisible relationship of us always swapping in and out, always having support. Like at the moment, his wife is pregnant with their fourth baby.
Mm.
And so, she's due in June, I'm due in August. And, he will go on maternity leave earlier to help her. He's very family orientated, such a good husband. And then I will go on maternity leave. And we just have this beautiful support. But anything we go through, we make it work, we make it happen. And like I said, even with that decision, with retailers, Cooper had, made that decision and I had made that decision separately. And then we came together. And because previously, maybe 6 months ago, I felt very differently. And I was like, no, this is the path we need to go. And so he brought it up and he's, oh, like, I just want to bring this up. It's been playing on my mind. And he was trying to be very like sensitive and like cautious. And then he said it and I was like, no, I'm thinking the exact same thing. And he was like, oh my God, I've been worried about this for months. And it's so funny because we just are huge on communication. We're very much, if he's maybe not acting in the way that I would want him to act, or, if I'm feeling like resentment towards the business, or I'm feeling like he's a bit tapped out, or vice versa, I know I can always bring that up to him and have that honest conversation. And so, yeah, I don't know, it just works.
Well, I think when you have that knowing of that almost like karmic connection together, it's like,
Yes.
I
Feels
really
very
do think,
karmic.
yeah,
Yeah.
when we come in with our siblings and there's something to it, like you've kind of chosen to do life together in some way.
Yeah.
And then this like deep understanding that you would have for each other and the honesty. I think that the
Yeah.
fact that you can just be like, look, we can just be transparent. I think that's powerful in any relationship.
Yeah. And I think when you're not scared to be transparent
Exactly.
is very, very important, especially if it's in, obviously a personal relationship or a business relationship.
Yeah. So please, you mentioned it about a relationship with money. How has your relationship with money evolved over the
Oh,
years? And
yeah.
what have you what's like a knowing in you now?
Yes. So the concept of money is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I grew up in a very traditional Aussie family. My dad was a plumber. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. They both kind of, came from nothing and built up. We had a very comfortable life. And but in saying that, we were very much, it was instilled, you worked very hard for money. You save your money. Money doesn't grow on trees, etc. I feel like that's
very,
the very normal
Mhm.
Aussie experience. And it's so interesting because now I look at my childhood and all my conditioning with money, and I'm like, it's just not true. It's a complete illusion.
Yeah.
And like I said, I made my career choices based on money, and I made so many choices based on money. And I've had the scarcity relationship with money. I've had the abundant relationship with money. I've had to continue my relationship with money because again, it's not linear. It's not an end result. And I think if you can really detach from money being this like physical, notes or numbers in a
Finite, tangible thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can detach from that and you can understand that it is an energy and you can understand that it's always going to reflect to you your beliefs about it. So for example, in my relationship with my husband Tim, which I've been with him since I was 17, going on 13 years now, if I was to show up in our relationship and I wasn't to trust him, if I was to think that he was always going to leave, if I was to think that I've got to work really, really hard for his love to the point of burnout, if I was to think that, I had to really hold on and not let him go see his friends or do anything because if he leaves, he's not going to come back. Like, how do you think our relationship would look? We probably wouldn't have a relationship. He'd be like, whoa, dude. Like,
Shut the fuck out.
tell him like, I'm just going to golf.
Exactly. Leave me alone.
Or, if I imagine if he was like
I'm
having a
out.
shower and I just kept looking at him in the shower and I'm just checking you're still there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it is no different. Our relationship to money is the same as our relationship to our partner. And, I hope we all know what a healthy, we don't all know, sorry, but
We've seen it.
we've all seen what a
yeah.
healthy relationship can be. And it's, for example, in me and Tim's relationship, he lets me go and do my thing. I've gone, and done my career and explored my purposes. And, we holiday, I'll go on a retreat and he goes and does golf and he has his interests and so much trust, so much love, so much acceptance. But the underlying is, I know he's always going to be there for me. I always give him the benefit of the doubt. I know that if there's any time an issue, we communicate about it. I know I'm able to change and evolve and he will accept and love me. That's, a foundation of a healthy relationship, let's say. So if you have things with money, like you constantly check your bank account, you constantly feel like if you don't hold on to that amount of money, you're going to be, less off or something bad is going to happen. If you feel like you have to work really, really hard to the point of burnout, to the point of your boundaries being broken, you are not going to have a great experience with wealth, with abundance. And it's so interesting because we don't get taught that. If you have never heard someone talk about money in that way, you'd be listening being like, what the fuck is she on? And so it's hard because all our conditioning for, however old you are, if it's, 30 years old, for 30 years, you have been taught about money in a certain way, and that's what your life has reflected. And so if you want to change your life with money, if you want to change your relationship with money, if you want to have more money, if you want to have less money, if you want to whatever, it is so simple that you need to change your beliefs, what you think, what you feel, what is in your body with your relationship with money. And your reality has to reflect that. It has to bend and change to reflect your beliefs. Like, our reality is just, our 3D. It's an illusion. It's not actually real, which again
Your
is a whole other
perception of it.
conversation.
Yes.
It's just our perception.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny because with money, I just always go back to those core beliefs. I always go back to, well, even if the 3D is reflecting, I know maybe you get a bill or something goes really wrong or something really fucks up in business and you're, down hundreds of thousands of dollars. That doesn't actually matter because I know I can go inwards. I can readjust things. I can look at, okay, well, what have I been thinking about? What have I been integrating? What have I been focusing on? I can readjust that. And I know my reality has to reflect that.
Absolutely.
It really can be that simple, but I know it's a whole conversation.
Well, like, let it be that simple. But at the same time,
Let
it's
it
like
be.
our stories and our illusions make it overcomplicated. And what I was really hearing from you especially is this, like anything in life, especially when we're moving towards with our life force energy and seeing that you receive from there's that reciprocal energy that's coming with money. And what has happened is that we've created all these prerequisites of how it has to happen. And so in really what you were saying, it's yes, we have the mindset piece, but it's also the energetic piece of, are you actually operating in the ways that you're saying that you want to operate? Are you actually living in that way? Because we can take out the word, money for love or for freedom or for energy. And the second that you're operating from a place of, I think even just when you were saying with the challenge there, when things like that happen, I always see it as an opportunity to expand.
Lock in.
To lock in and to like literally be like, wow, my vessel is like expanding in this moment of how much I can hold and how much I can do. And like knowing that there's actually going to be a lot more coming on the other side. Because this idea, again, it's based on this 1% perception of our logical mind of this bill came in or things are really whatever right now. So this is how it's going to be moving forward. Things are bad, so it equals bad.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing what is the other potential that could be happening from this. Like I'm sure when you've had those things happen in your business, like what the lesson that you gain from it, often they can be like an expensive lesson or an expensive bill. But then from that, you've gained so much
Yeah.
more abundance money from that,
Yeah.
and it's like seeing that. I think a lot of the time, the conditioning is this like punishment that we're always then continuing for
Well,
ourselves.
it's like, for example, if I was to say to you, if you knew for a fact
Yeah.
that for the next 2 years you wouldn't earn any money, maybe you'd even lose some money, but at the end of that 2 years, you would be given a check of $5 million. How would you feel? How would you move through that time at knowing that certainty? Compared to if because again, we don't know, we don't have that
Yeah.
certainty, we're not supposed to. If you move through life and you were constantly having, I'm not gaining money, I'm not gaining wealth, how would you move? It's like you can see how different that person is going to be. And so that's why it's so important to not engage with the 3D, not engage with our reality, because it's never a truth unless you want it to
Unless
be a
you
truth.
make it to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that's a hard concept to kind of comprehend sometimes. But also, like you said, you never know what's going to happen. And let's say you lose a bit of money for this, that, and whatever reason. If you make it mean that you're bad with money, that you'll never have more money, etc., then that will be true for you. That will be your story. But if you make it mean this was the moment that I then went and did the thing and then, sold the company for this amount or, whatever. There's so many stories that we have of other people having that rock bottom moment and then something incredible happening, or having that rock bottom moment and something even worse happening. You actually get to decide. And that's like, I am a huge manifestor, huge law of assumption, all that sort of thing. And you really are the co-creator of your life, and the universe is here to back you. But it doesn't care if it's negative or positive. So if you want to have these negative views and these negative stories, it's going to back you, and that's what you're going to get. If you want to have these incredible positive stories and positive experience and positive challenges, it's going to back you. It doesn't actually matter. Your belief system, your reflections is what matters.
Absolutely. And even for people that are listening now and you can feel your mind wanting to resist it or your conditioning, and like beautiful, just like be aware of that.
Yeah.
Instead of running down the stories, you can just be like, okay, there's a part of me that is saying, oh, that's all well and good for you to say. Or there's a part of me that's saying, but that's not possible for me. And I think sometimes we can either, it's not about shaming that, it's about being like, interesting, there is this part of me that is in this like disbelief or in this, fear for self.
Yep.
And like, how are you when you do have moments of like doubt or fear or like self-judgment? How do you operate through that?
Yes. Okay. So again, understanding that that's not a bad thing. We have, the inner critic, we have the doubt, we have the ego, so we don't die, so we're not jumping off cliffs and stuff. But really seeing that again, not as truth.
Yeah.
Well, it can be truth if you want it to be truth, but seeing it as a choice and just seeing it as your past conditioning. So anytime I do have doubt or I have things come up, I'm like, oh, this is good. I know there's still a belief system inside that is reflecting this doubt, is reflecting this shame, is reflecting this guilt. Do I want to carry that forward? And being like, okay, cool, I have this option. This is where I need to do the work. Because again, it's so easy to say, just have a great relationship with money. Just, think you're always going to be successful. But unless you're looking internally and seeing what needs to shift, what needs to move through, because again, it can be simple, but also, this is just a very complex example, but to give an example, if you are someone who has been abused, let's say by a man, and then you listen to someone, they're like, men are great, just be in a healthy relationship with a man, but you have this past experience that would be trauma inside your body. You can't just think, oh no, men are fine, men can be safe. You would have to work through that trauma. You would have to work through that inner experience. And of course, you can work through it, but it's sometimes not as simple as just thinking it, if that makes sense. So when I do have these situations that come up of the inner critic, of the doubt, it's showing me where I need to do the work. And then from there, you know, using different modalities. So for me, I am big on meditation, breath work, EFT tapping. That's kind of like my go-to. And I have an app where we do all that. And so that's my basis. If that's still feeling like the doubt's still coming up, the shame, guilt, you know, whatever the feeling is, then it might be, you know, like I go to a full body healer where we do a lot of different, it's like EDMRT,
Yeah.
you know, those sorts of things. So
EMDR, yeah.
yes, so
Yeah.
I'll go deeper. And so in that situation, it's not bad. It's just showing me my previous past conditioning, where my body is storing trauma, where I'm, you know, thinking a certain way. And it's so good when it comes up because you have the chance to clear it.
Yeah.
If you never had challenges, if everything went right, like you would never be shaped, you would never understand yourself, you would never become. And like we were saying in our previous conversation, this beautiful life, this incredible life is about the becoming.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are going through something tough, like of course, have that beautiful self-compassion and love for yourself, but also understand that it is this beautiful opportunity to expand, to move forward, because without that, you would never be able to identify. And it's funny, I saw this quote that was so beautiful, and I will try not butcher it. And she was saying, like, our doubt is the before of our courage. Because without the doubt, without the things stopping you, you don't get to move through it. You don't get to be the person who moves through it. You don't get to become the person who overcomes that. And so it's like we need those experiences. We need those things. And that's why, you know, I'll talk about manifestation and people will be like, but look at all the bad in the world. Did that person deserve it? And it's never about that person deserving it. It's never about that, but also understanding that everyone is on their own journey.
Yeah.
And I personally believe it's like we've all signed the slip where it's, this is what I want to experience. This is the becoming I want. So we have to have these experiences to become the person we want. So, and if you can have that mindset where something is going down, like shit's going down, shit's not good. And you can have the mindset of, this is actually my becoming. Like, how can I lean more into this? How can I be more uncomfortable? How can I, like we were saying off air, Hillary, of like, I'm going through a period where I'm actually having to slow down and I'm having to be more present and I'm having to let go and surrender. And that feels so foreign to me because my comfortable is the overachieving.
Yeah.
It's doing more. It's, you know, level 5 kind of thing. So it's so interesting because it's so uncomfortable to slow down, to be present, to just be still. And so that's how I know that's where I need to be. Because again, if you just stay in the comfortable zone of what you've always known, you can do that, but you will never become more. You will never expand more. And again, I truly believe that is, the purpose of why we're here.
Gosh, absolutely. I feel sometimes you're talking, I'm like, wow, literally exactly all my teachings. So yeah,
like,
exactly
wow,
right.
this is such a reflection.
I know you're even using similar words and things, but yeah, like right on time, almost like right on time. Okay,
Everything's right on time.
Exactly what you were saying of what is the actual whole point of it. And so if the whole point is the becoming, or is the transformation, or is the evolution, or is the, we say like the karmic correction, whatever, as we said,
Yeah.
the come in here with something like, okay, so if we need to learn something, we're going to be given those challenges, and it's going to often be around something that we're deeply motivated by. We're deeply motivated by love and money. And so we'll get challenged around that because we still want those things. So if we're thinking that in order to get through this challenge and I'll be able to receive that, it's like a motivating force. And so exactly how you said, when you can almost just that shift of perspective of this is, the cliche thing, but like I was going to say,
Life's happening for me.
yeah, it's happening for me, not to me. And this idea as well of you need to be scared to be brave. And yeah, you need to doubt in order to overcome and to have this courage. And so when you see that the constriction is always going to happen right before the expansion, and I saw it even just recently where we're selling our place and we want to have more land. And of course, the selling process, like the real estate agent is just like, Nick's just like, why is he making it difficult?
Yeah.
And I was like, Nick, this is a good sign.
Yeah.
Something is coming. We're going to, this is going to be an incredible process, because all just these like little stupid challenges of, Nick ended up getting his own photographer in, and he was like, should we just get another real estate agent? And I'm like, this is good. Even though obviously it doesn't mean that you just sit back and do nothing. It's, shift and problem solver mode. But knowing that this is not actually a bad sign. I think Nick almost went down of, is this a bad sign about selling the place? Is this,
No, that's victim mentality.
Exactly.
Never fall into it.
Never. So to speak to that, please, because I think a lot of us can, even just hearing this, we can go into the victim mentality. So speak more into that, please.
Oh, honestly, the worst thing you can do in your life is be stuck in victim mentality and think things are going wrong.
Yeah.
And that person will perpetually have a bad life. What you focus on expands. So great story. I love that you brought in, your property situation. Yeah. So we recently moved, and it was this thing. So it's interesting because even with the relationships, me and my husband went through a huge challenge in our relationship, which at the time I was like, why? We've been together for so long. We've never had issues. Like, why is this happening? It felt very like I was in the victim mentality of like, why? Because he was like the one constant in my life that I never really had to work on. And so we went through a huge challenge around when we had our first daughter. It really reflected a lot of wounds in each other. And I think just having a child just is such a challenging process.
An initiation.
It is. Yeah. And it's interesting because now that we're past that challenge, we have such a deeper relationship. We have such a deeper connection, which again, we've been together for so long, I didn't think that was possible. But now we're on the other side. I'm like, oh my God, thank God that happened. But during the time, it wasn't nice. And so that's the first thing of, but if you get stuck, if I was stuck in the victim mentality, if he was stuck in the victim mentality, who knows what could happen? Maybe we wouldn't be together, or, that sort of.
You believe your illusions.
Yes, exactly. And so just be very conscious of that. And I think going back to the property thing, we recently moved, and it came off the back of these, challenges where we're like, we want something different for the family. We want to have more land. We want more space. We want Ivy to have like more of a yard. We want the dogs to have a yard. And we end up buying a house before we sold our other primary house. Yeah. And it felt like such a stretch, but I was like, it's such a stretch. It's going to be the right decision. Like, blah, 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 blah.
Your trust muscles there.
Yes. And it's interesting because we didn't end up selling it. So we actually are renting that house now. And it's definitely, I would prefer to sell it because it's, it's always, not always on your mind, but it's like.
The releasing of it. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, I would just. Yeah. Rather, because it's not, we have other investment properties and it's definitely not going to be an investment property. It's like you live there as your house.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because we didn't sell it. So we ended up renting it, and it's definitely like negatively geared. So it's definitely, again, it's not the best financial situation. And I noticed how much that brought up with childhood beliefs around, well, you always have to pick the safe money option. And again, this is like I've done so much money work. Like my life is such a reflection of how much money work I have done, and I teach money work. And it has been the best thing because I literally feel like a different person with my money mindset, but I had to go through this experience. And still at this time, like we haven't sold it. It is still on the market, but it is rented out.
If you're looking.
And it's funny because even the conversations I've been having with my dad, because he's like the ultimate stress case with money. And he's, every time we see him, he's like, have you sold the house? What's happening? Blah, blah. And I'm like, Dad, it's all good. Because, but you're bleeding money. And I'm like, yeah, but Dad, when I sell it, the money we bled is going to be such a blip that you're not going to be worried. Trust me, you're not going to be worried. And I, with the reflection of him, have to constantly move into this secure relationship with money and be constantly tested. And it has been the best thing because I feel so rock solid with it, because it's like it hasn't happened straight away. If it happened straight away, I wouldn't have learnt what I'm currently feeling and what I'm currently having to apply. And so I also know it's like such a huge expansion, not even on the other side because that's happening right now. But again, having that trust, having that belief system where I'm like, this is happening for me. This is working out for me. This is showing me the lessons. It's showing me where I need to heal, where I need to work on, where I need to be more secure. And if I was to fall into victim mentality, I can just see so clearly that path and what it would look like. And I can also see it in a lot of the relationships currently.
Yeah.
And so I think, like I said, the best thing you can ever do is like almost like live in that delusion.
Yeah.
Like my dad
Be
thinks
naive.
I'm genuinely delusional with
Good.
what I believe, you know, with our properties and our financial decision. And, you know, like it's so funny because me having to, you know, because I love my dad, I'm going to continuously have conversations with him. So it's like me having to continuously lock in my beliefs and be so secure in that is the challenge,
Yeah.
is the reflection. Because not only it's hard enough you getting like on board with the new reality to then convince other people. That's why I actually tell people, you know, in my courses, it's don't tell people your
Boundaries
dreams
with that.
because it's like you need to get on board and be so fucking 100%. Don't try and convince other people. And it's so funny because in this experience, I'm having to not convince him, but it's a conversation. But I feel so good in the conversation. I feel so secure. And I'm like, fuck, I'm seeing money in this whole new expanded light that Georgie 3 months ago saw money so differently. And so again, I haven't even, like, it's not even finished. It's
You're in
not
process with it. Yeah.
finalized. I'm in process, but I can see the becoming. I can see the expansion. I can see the person I want to be in this scenario. Because again, it's, for instance, let's say you're bleeding, you know, $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
So you're losing $1,000 a week for a year, $52,000. But let's say the sale price, you're going to make $1 million.
Yeah.
Would you do that? Of course you would. I don't have that certainty, but I'm like, of course that's going to happen.
Yeah. You have
Like,
certainty in self and certainty in what's possible, you know? I think,
yes.
yes, we don't need to have certainty of knowing the exact thing.
No, because and also how. The how doesn't matter
No.
and the exact thing doesn't matter. It's you being so secure in the beliefs and knowing that you're always going to be supported. You're always going to be guided. It's always going to work out. And I think the best thing too, if you cannot have to see evidence of that all the time, you're unstoppable. If you need to see evidence of things working out, trust me when I say you will not have a good life, or, you know, you will have an ordinary life. If you can be the person who doesn't need to see evidence and you can push forward in your vision and who you want to be, you will have an extraordinary life that people will look at your life and be like, what the, like, how did you do that? And you won't be able to tell them because it's just, you know, locking into your beliefs and
You're just in your energy.
yeah, you're just in your energy. And that's even like, you know, I go on podcasts and I talk about my story of I once was a lawyer and then I created this and I came from nothing and this is what I have, you know, made. And I could give you my step to step of how I did it, but you would not be able to replicate it because there is so much invisible energy and belief and challenges that, again, is so in my blueprint and who I am that it's like you could not replicate my story. And so I think if you can be the person where you don't need evidence and you are your own backing, you have your own support with the support of, you know, the universe, whatever you want to believe in, you literally become unstoppable.
So powerful, Georgie. And I think even with what you were just saying of the evidence can be your intuition or the evidence can be where you're feeling called. And, you know, I think a lot of people think that worry is going to mean that like nothing will happen. Like your dad saying, if I'm worried about this or if we do the logical thing, then we'll get to the solution. Whereas what you're saying is that, no, I can have this expansion and can have so much trust. And also how you operate in the world will be so different than from fear and from lack. Like when you have that knowing, it's you operate differently in the world.
And the intention behind it, if you act from fear,
Yeah.
if you act from, you know, those
That's
low
when you lose money.
Yeah, that's when you lose money. If
Yeah.
I was to now be like, oh, well, I'll just take any offer because I need to get rid of my house, I guarantee you I'm going to lose money. I'm going to not, you know, win out. I don't know what the word is, but.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I think sometimes it can be hard to articulate It's the energy behind it, as we've even
The
just said.
knowing.
It's the
Yeah.
knowing. And I think sometimes you have to trust. Well, you do. You have to trust until it becomes a knowing. And so you like let yourself take in Georgie's words of, okay, my body still feels unsafe in this, but let this be somewhat of your evidence. Because honestly, everyone's just throwing up stories. Everyone's just throwing up options. And so imagine if you took this as the option rather than the option of the fear. And we can say it's a choice, but it's also helping your subconscious to make that choice, because your subconscious is already making the choosing now,
Yeah.
and it's just what's known.
Yeah.
And so it's so beautiful that you're being able to hold that, because I agree with you of having manifestation boundaries of who you tell, and don't expect people to believe in your dreams if they don't even believe in their own.
Yeah.
And so when you can just be like so firm, and you're getting these little tests right now, and I'm excited for the expansion that's going to come after
I
this.
know, I can't wait to start.
I know. We knew it. We knew it. And just that trust that you've cultivated, and that's such a testament to you, but it's possible for everyone.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, like previous Georgie, who was still in her becoming, would have never said that on a podcast, because it's, oh, I'm just trying to get on board. I can't fucking tell the world.
Yeah.
And that's even such a testament to like my journey and my becoming and kind of where I'm at. Because, yeah, I wouldn't have felt comfortable or safe in my body to talk about a manifestation before it happened. Whereas now I'm like, I know it's going to work out.
My light is strong enough.
Yeah.
Wow. So please share with, you moving into second baby, just to wrap this up, how are you feeling and how's everything with all your businesses? You did share that your intention is to slow down. What are you most excited about coming out?
Again, the slowing down feels very uncomfortable. So that's,
Not exciting.
yeah, where I know I need to lean into.
Mhm.
And again, we kind of spoke about this off air, but I have, worked so hard on my businesses for a very long time. Well, 6 years of my businesses. And then before that, building, my community, my profile, and all those sorts of things. And the belief, the story that I want to step into is I don't have to push all the time. I don't have to be the driver. I can live off the momentum. I can go through a season of, leaning in and producing and creating. And then I can go through a season of stillness where the previous energy just creates so much momentum. And so I probably haven't previously had that story. Again, it's been the story I've just got to go, go, go and continue. And of course, then that's what my evidence is. And so I'm really leaning into the new story of, no, I actually can slow down. I can be in this beautiful season of being present and stillness. And everything gets to continue because of my previous energy, because of just who I am, because I'm just worthy.
Yeah. You're a magnet.
Yeah. And so that feels very exciting, I think, again, my first, pregnancy, my first baby girl, Ivy, she very much taught me so many things. I call her like my mirror child. And I not made mistakes, but of course we need to go through these life experiences to know what we want, to know who we are. And like with Ivy, I went back to work after only 8 weeks. And it wasn't actually because I had to. It's because I was struggling so much in the newborn period that I wanted to. I wanted that old identity back. And so again, I know I'm probably going to feel that again, but sitting in the discomfort of don't go back to your old identity, Georgia. You can co-create, you can recreate right now. And so I'm really looking forward to that sort of challenge. And well, it doesn't even have to be a challenge. It does get to be easy, but that becoming.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to doing it differently and just having a lot more present time. And when I did have Ivy too, I don't think I was as comfortable, with myself, with my emotions. I hadn't done as much as the inner work, whereas, now it's nearly 4 years later, I've done so much inner work. Really becoming a mum cascaded so much inner work. It was fucking wild. And I'm so grateful because I do feel like I get a different experience now because I'll create it. And I'm just like really looking forward to that. And also knowing, I had the limiting belief stories of, oh, well, if I stop, will I become not relevant? Will the businesses blow up? Will things, slow down? And so again, like constantly challenging those beliefs, because if you're just going and going and going and, being this constant high achiever and I've got to do this, this, and this, you will go through burnout. You will experience, like, it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
So it's like this next season is just very much practicing what I preach and engaging this like whole new identity. And so I'm really excited because I feel like
Yeah.
in the next, you know, 12 months, we'll probably reconnect again and you'll be like, oh my God,
I know.
whole different woman, which I'm so excited about because again, I love evolution. I love
Yeah.
changing. If you met me when I was 21, you wouldn't know who I am now. And I hope, you know, in a year's time, it's
Mhm.
the same situation.
Beautiful. And what I was also hearing from you is, okay, do I like this about myself in this way that I operating in the sense, like you mentioned this earlier, and I just had this ping to share it again for those listening. When we have a certain way of, okay, the way that I have been doing work that served me so much in the
Served
past,
me.
but do I like this
Do I
about
want to
how
keep it or
do I
do
want
I
to keep
want
it
to
or do I
change it?
not? And then you can
Yeah.
just literally just that option again, an option of, okay, well, there could be something a different way, and then you can
And
create
it doesn't
evidence and
make it
show it. No,
bad. It
it
doesn't
doesn't
make
have
it
to be wrong.
wrong. You know, like I don't have the belief I'm a bad mother because I went back after
No,
8 weeks
no.
or anything like that. But again, it's about this whole experience is you creating it. Like we are these creative beings. And so it's like how amazing that you can have the same, you know, go through a similar thing and co-create a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And I just do have that like backing of, oh, I do want a different experience. I do want to do it differently. I do want to have a different identity and really just, it's like a suit. It's like you put it on, you're like, oh, how does this feel?
Yeah.
And, you know, I might have a third baby and I might go back to, I'm going to go straight back to work. You know, who knows? But
Yeah.
it's like how cool to find out.
Yeah, and just let it. Allow it.
Yeah, allow it.
Allow. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Georgie. I'll put everything, all your beautiful businesses below in your podcast. And thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
being here. You're such a channeler and it's so incredible. And you're such a testament to the work that you do. So thank you for sharing because it's really important.
I appreciate it, Hilly. I've loved this conversation so much.